this episode of Business Growth, we're talking with Karen Waxman. She's the founder of Retail MBA. Now, we've brought her on the show today to specifically talk about the needs of physical product business owners. So if you happen to be selling a product on Amazon, if you've thought about it, or if you're an inventor, this is the episode to listen to. Now, I'll explain why. See, she's in the retail space, working with these huge companies like Walmart, and Costco, and Walgreens, and Whole Foods, and all of these different companies. And she's going to explain how maybe retail is a lot easier to do, and there's a lot less competition and a lot more revenue than fighting out all of the people on Amazon. So Karen is the source of that. She's the one that people go to, and I've asked her questions because we've been friends for years so that she can really dive in and kind of pull back the curtains, explain to you what you can do to be selling on retail. It's a pretty interesting episode. We're going to start out with her giving some of that background, and I really wanted you to have this conversation with her as well so you can understand that she is the source for that. You're going to learn a ton of different things, and you're going to see how the retail business is something that you may be wanting to do and how this can make your business a lot more profitable if you ever plan on having an exit in the future. So let's dive right into the interview. Would you mind helping our listeners for just a moment? Can you give us a 30-second bio on who you are and bring us up to speed of retail? And then we're going to jump into some conversation.
Yeah. So my name is Karen Waxman. I'm the founder of a company called Retail MBA. We help physical product companies get their products into big retail chains like Walmart or Macy's, Home Depot, Kroger grocery store, Whole Foods, whatever it is for you. So we walk you through exactly how to do that. I've been teaching people how to get into big chain stores for almost a decade now. It's been a pretty wild ride. I started my career out even before teaching people how to get into retail chains as a manufacturer's rep, which is a sales rep who sells products to retail chains. So I've been doing this a long time. So before the almost decade of teaching this stuff, I used to do this as a living. I've sold millions of products to the world's largest retailers. And what I do is I teach a formula. The formula is just this little formula that I used to use when I wanted to get products into stores, new products, whatever it was. I just used to do this thing, and it used to convert into sales. And so I started teaching that formula to others, people who hated sales, people who just had a new product, people, advanced sales people, whatever it was, showing them this process. And it seemed to consistently work time and time again. So that's what I talk about. I help people make money with their physical products. And over the years, I've evolved into doing things like, I have training programs, I do live events, I do coaching, I do all sorts of things. I talk to people like Spencer, we play, and, we help people. That's what we do. We're here to help, just trying to help you make some magic with your physical product. So that's it.
How cool is that? What a story. So let's start talking about this physical product world. And most of the hype that happens is this Amazon. So people are talking about, and it goes in a couple different ways. Oh, we'll drop ship, or, oh, let's go in and private label, or whatever that may be. And while that's great, there's a whole other level, which is the retail side of things. And so if you can help our listeners, maybe let's start with the foundation of understanding the difference between working in the Amazon world versus being in the retail world.
That's a great question. So actually, it's funny because when I started selling or teaching this stuff, I started working with a lot of inventors and product creators and that type of thing. And then the whole economy changed where people started learning about how to sell products on Amazon. So actually, like a whole new slew of people showed up, crushing it on Amazon. They were doing all these phenomenal things. And so now all of a sudden I'm dealing with a lot of Amazon sellers, e-commerce players, and so forth. So it hasn't been that long in this intense mayhem of physical product companies and how they're selling products. At the end of the day, Amazon is amazing for people who want to start, selling products online, right? Amazon gives you their platform. Basically, you upload your product onto their site, and for a fee, you get access to millions of their customers, right? And hopefully, if you learn anything about Amazon, you know that the more ads you do, or the more search engine optimization, or whatever it is that you're doing to get more people to know about your product on Amazon, the more sales you get. So I've seen more internet millionaires in these last 5 years through Amazon than anything else. I mean, it's been phenomenal to watch. I mean, people selling white bath mats, crushing it, like it's been a really fun ride. So with Amazon, the thing about it is that it's kind of the Wild West. It's kind of changing a little bit now where, it's getting a little bit more competitive. People are struggling a little bit to keep their prices high and so forth. But Amazon's just a great place to sell a product. So pretty much all of my customers, whether or not they started on Amazon or not, eventually sell something on Amazon. Amazon is magical in that you can upload something and be really good online and take some courses and kind of grow from there. Retail is actually kind of similar in some way in that the retailers have a platform, and if they choose your product, you get access to millions of their customers as well. So the difference is that you have to speak to humans a little bit more, like the Amazon sellers. They're kind of the nerdies, no offense. The people who are like, behind the scene, they don't like to talk to people. Like I've seen that a lot. I mean, not all of you. I'm not offending anybody, but I'm just making jokes here. But really, there's a lot of people who like the behind the scenes stuff. With retail, you do kind of have to interact with the retailers a little bit. There is a little bit more communication. However, once you get interest from a retail chain, one chain store order can make you millions and millions of dollars. I have clients who get reorders every single week or two, consistently making millions of dollars just on a few accounts. So with retail, you have to put a little bit more effort in that there's some packaging and there's certain things that you have to do, pricing, you have to understand the way it all works. But it's actually pretty formulaic, and it can be amazing for you and your business if you're willing to look at that. Sometimes people are just so afraid of retail and how big it is and how overwhelming it looks. And, they think that throwing up a product on Amazon is easy and retail is complicated. I would say otherwise. I mean, I actually show people how to do that fairly simply. So the difference between Amazon and retail is that there is more cultivating a message. There is more strategy around selling to retailers. I would say it's like 80% strategy and really coming up with your story, and then 20% actually interacting with the retailers. Whereas Amazon, it's just another thing. I actually think it's pretty complicated to sell a lot of product on Amazon. Just all the things that you guys do, like if you just converted that on the retail side, you guys could make a fortune. Now, I'll also tell you that if you are an Amazon seller, I don't see why you wouldn't consider retail chains, because if you ever want to sell your company, the valuation of your company will increase exponentially just by having a few retail accounts. And I'm not talking about like a few little baby accounts. I mean, like if you got a few, Home Depot and a few other accounts or whatever it is, the valuation of your company will increase because the investors are looking at your business and seeing, okay, this is not just a company who sells on one channel. They have a variety of different channels that they sell into, and that makes them more of a stable company. They're more grounded. They're more, ultimately, you seem more interesting of a company to buy. Does that make sense?
It does, totally.
So there are different things, and also you should always go into retail if you're trying to eventually sell your company. That's what I think.
Up next, Karen's going to talk about why boring products are not going to work in retail space, and maybe the differences between retail products on the shelf space versus products inside of the Amazon store. She also shares the magic questions on how you can make the retail experience better.
I think the Amazon seller who did all that work and learned how to source stuff from manufacturing and all that stuff is so advanced that if they were willing to just look at retail and just say, how can I tweak this for retail? You guys can do so well. You did all the hard part of figuring out how to even consider packaging and how to ship stuff. And you guys did all the hard work. I mean, the inventor who came up with the idea, who has no clue how to manufacture anything or how to do any of that stuff, has to start where you guys are. So you guys are really, really ahead of the game. The thing about your products are some of you have really boring, simple products that the whole world is already selling. And that is a product that is going to be a little bit of a challenge for retail chains because they've seen a lot of products. And when you walk into a store, you're looking for, the buyer needs to create an experience. Like online, on Amazon or whatever, you can buy any sort of product. You can buy your underwear on Amazon, you can buy any type of product on Amazon. In stores, it does need to be a little bit more interesting, somewhat innovative. So I don't want to scare you. Any single Amazon seller can take a look at retail. And if they have a really boring product, they can say, okay, I see these products are on the store shelves already. What can I do to tweak my product a little bit to just make it, can I add an extra button to it? Can I add an extra something to it that would make somebody want to buy, my product versus somebody else's? So going to the stores and really seeing what's there, and then seeing, is this really a match? It's already happening all over the place. What can I do to clean this up to make it a little bit cooler? I'll give you a couple examples. Somebody came to me with some toothpaste, something that they created. And it's interesting, but toothpaste is very competitive space. They also sell toothbrushes and these types of things, right? And so, but they had a great packaging. It was kind of innovative, unique. But I know that because it's a competitive space, I don't know, it could go either way with retail. But sometimes you can take a look at two products, you can put them together, create a little kind of gift pack, and then it looks really interesting. It's not selling in stores. It's got some really interesting packaging. And yeah, maybe the buyer would be interested in that. Another example would be what inventors do. They they look at stores, they look on store shelves, and then they say, okay, what is on store shelves today? What can I create that's a combination of the things that are already selling? So what can I add to what's not on store shelves and add to enhance their assortment to make it cooler, interesting, more innovative? You guys are all smart. It's not brain surgery. There's no new products on the market. It's just a slight innovation of an existing product, I guess is my point. Does that make sense?
It totally makes sense. Now, when you're talking about this, does that mean that as a part of going through retail, you're having to come up with a better product idea? You're building.
Not necessarily. Some people, you're selling on Amazon. I don't mean to cut you off, but some people who sell on Amazon are tired of everybody knocking off their stuff. So they create a tweak of their existing product and then they go patent it or whatever. So there's a lot of you who are already starting to do that because you're getting hammered with, companies in other countries who are hitting you really hard. So you guys are actually kind of innovating anyways. And how did you pick your product initially? You created the product and then you added a better thing. You were looking what the customer reviews were. And I checked out ASM. I know I partnered with those guys. I know what you guys do. You guys are looking at these products and then you're kind of making it better and then posting it online. So it's the same thing with retail. It's just, you got to look in stores and make sure that it's really not the exact same thing.
Coming up, you're going to hear about private labeling and how private labeling is a totally different world inside of the retail space. One of the shocking things is you're going to hear how retail stores will actually buy products from you as the private labeler. So you don't even have to manufacture the product. You can be the middle person and still profit off of that. Now, is the real next competition, I know on Amazon now, at least there's this underlying thing, and maybe a lot of listeners don't know, but Amazon is starting to, cut people out at their legs by private labeling products more and more. And you see retailers like Walmart private labeling their products. Is that a true competition, or is that something that a person doesn't need to worry about?
So retail chains, they're drastically different than Amazon in one way. They're very slow. They're big, established companies, and they are changing and they have to innovate because of Amazon. But generally speaking, they're not as, what would be the word to use for Bezos? He would go and do whatever it takes to just enhance revenue and sales. With retailers, they have to think about their corporations. And they have to think about making sure that the vendors flow in. They don't have time to privately, you know what I mean? They have a really established scenarios there. It's not quite the same at all. And so the stuff that you're dealing with on Amazon doesn't happen as much with retail. Now, other thing I'll tell you is all retail chains have private label. So it's, they'll have a brand name and then they'll sell products under their corporate brand or yours, right? They do that for a reason. They have certain clients who come in who just want the best price, right, for really popular products. They have to accommodate that. They're already getting killed with everything else going on. They have to accommodate that. So you can look at it as, they're hustling and they're hurting, whatever, but they're also trying to get people in the door as well. They are never going to stop selling branded products, and they're also looking at certain private label products as well. You can sell to a retail chain under their private label brand, by the way. So you could there's a buyer who actually purchases private label products. So it's a little different there as well. So they can So the way it works is if the buyer likes your product, they'll tell you where to go get the packaging, and it'll be their packaging. So you're still selling to them as a manufacturer. It's just their branding is on it. And some people don't care about whose branding is on it. They just want to make money. And so that is another strategy of selling to retail chains. So it's a little bit different.
Up next, Karen explains the relationship dynamic with retail buyers and why it's not what you expect. And here's a hint. It's not sales. Wow. It's kind of cool because you're in a way, you're teaching the other side that most people are completely avoiding, because most of the noise is in the Amazon world. And what you're saying is more of a relationship-centered business instead of we'll call it a technology type of business. Yes. So what is that relationship like? Obviously, you being in the industry for several years, you understand how people think, how the buyers think, how they act, and what they expect. Can you walk us through the head of what that buyer relationship is like?
So I'll be clear with this because people always hear this and they say, Karen, you can talk. You're a sales girl. You would be the person to go talk to a buyer. So I'm here to explain something to you. With retail chains, first of all, the way that I teach, the strategies that I teach, you actually you don't even meet the buyer usually. I would say 80% of the time, you're not going to meet them face-to-face till after you start making money, probably 90%. It's really rare these days that a buyer will meet you first before they actually purchase from you. So they'll purchase from you, they'll test your product out. If it starts selling, they like you, then all of a sudden they'll be willing to meet with you more. So it's not actually what you think sales would be. It's not actually selling, really. It's mostly virtual. So I teach virtual strategies essentially. So not a lot of phone calls, very few. You probably spend a whopping 20 to 30 minutes with a buyer, maybe an hour, before you start getting an order from them. So it's really not huge. Mostly it's mechanical as well. So the way that I teach, it's formulaic in that the buyers are actually just looking at your product. They're not looking at you, your personality. With retailers, buyers change jobs every 6 months to a year. So the retailers don't allow them to stay at their job that long, so that they don't get any weird thing because they can buy millions of dollars worth of product and so forth. So ultimately, they keep the emotions out of this completely. So you cannot have an emotional relationship with the buyer. You can't go to dinner with them. You can't go to a meal with them. You can't buy them a gift. You can't do anything at all. It's completely illegal. And they don't usually meet you that often. So you really actually can't have that much of an emotional experience with this buyer whatsoever. And so it's really strategic, and you look at and decide whether or not they're going to buy the product or not. And they can typically see in 5 seconds or less whether or not they'll like your product or not, because they see the same product all day, every day. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it's actually not what you think sales is. I actually don't think retail is sales at all. I used to sell. This is not sales. This is actual strategy, and then knowing the way to interact with the buyer in a way that, that it just gets you orders. And then hopefully the product sells, and then much bigger orders. Wow. Obviously, there's exceptions to the rule, these types of things. But most of the time, I would say, because we have other programs for our existing customers. And so we use all our strategies, you know what I mean? And so, we never had to meet with buyers or anything like that. So.
Wow, that's totally interesting, because I think what's portrayed, or at least I'm going to state for the Amazon type of sellers, is that in our minds we picture the horror stories of going to Bentonville, Arkansas, sitting in a 10 by 10 room and just getting completely slaughtered on your prices. And then, that's the end of the relationship. Or the other side is becoming a part of the good old boy network. And so what you've done is you've just kind of dispelled any types of myths that would go on in a person's head.
Well, I'll tell you, so to be clear, a lot of Amazon sellers think Walmart. Walmart is the low price leader. You want to start with Walmart. It sounds cool, but they will destroy as much pricing as possible because they're always going to try and get the best possible price. Most other retailers are not the low price leader. So there's lots of strategies and hundreds or thousands of major chain stores that you can go after that won't pillage you that way. And yes, you could go to Walmart corporate on occasion, and they may have you have a buyer meeting or whatever. But most of the time, a lot of times, actually, Walmart is one of the easier companies to sell into. It's actually true of all the other chain stores. However, again, you guys then complain later that, they hammered me on price, or I didn't make any money. It's not like Amazon. I hear all this stuff all day long,
Yeah,
so,
sure.
everybody's got a story. So I'm here to tell you that there's strategy even around that. Like, would I go to Walmart first? Probably not, because I want to make money, but I like Walmart because they'll buy a lot of volume. It'll help me with a lot of other things. Like, so when I go and create, pay for manufacturing and stuff, now that I'm getting these massive orders from Walmart, that'll help me with all aspects of my other business because my prices go down. I mean, there's lots of awesome things that can occur when you're working with a big chain store like Walmart.
Coming up, Karen shares the number one mistake most people make when starting out in the retail world, and she explains how the real money is made in this industry.
I think the number one thing people don't understand is that it's very similar. Retail is very similar to Amazon in that if you put your product on Amazon and you just put it up there, you'll make some money. But if you don't invest some energy, some time, some effort to get people to know that your product is there, you won't make as much money, right? It typically happens that way. You have to help people know that it's on Amazon. Retail is the same thing. If you get an order from a chain store, even a small one, make sure that test converts. People know that your products in stores. Help them out, man. Do Facebook ads, drive some sales to that zip code, that location. Do whatever you can. A gift with, I don't know what it takes, but get that sale to convert. Get those products to sell. Once it's in stores, help them help you sell the product. And that's where the real money comes in. So sometimes people think, oh, well, I got an order from, this big chain store or Best Buy or whatever. I feel great. I got my money, got the purchase order and all this stuff. But, that's just the beginning. So like the real work comes in and making sure that you're going to figure out, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. You can be creative like you would on Amazon. It's not brain surgery. You guys are all internet marketers. You can figure it out. How do I get people to know that my product's in that particular store? And that's it. So when you start doing that, you can make millions of dollars because the buyers are looking at the numbers. They don't care about anything else except for that product selling. If your product is selling better than somebody else, you will be their favorite and they'll be so nice to you. I mean, you should see, like, the crustiest buyers will turn into the sweethearts, gentle giants adoring you, right? And
well, it makes them look good, right?
Because it makes them look good. They have day jobs. They want to succeed. Their bosses are looking at their numbers. I mean, they have the worst job ever. Could you imagine being responsible, putting certain products on store shelves, and if it doesn't sell and you look bad, you know what I mean? So, like, you look good when that happens. So they're very happy with the people who help them. So they're looking for partnership and community in that way. So just help them make money. So, that's why they like it when you go to stores in advance and take a look at what's going on. That's why, okay, there's 20 other products on the shelves. How am I going to make sure that someone will see mine versus somebody else's? That's why these things matter. It's not brain surgery. It's just care a little. So some Amazon sellers are like, I just want to make money. I just want to get in the stores. And I'm like, that's great, but like care a little, like help them out a little. But like now we're getting into other humans and, this is not a robotic experience. People are coming into stores. It's a other kind of a little bit different in that way. And I keep making jokes, but it's really just because I work with so many Amazon sellers.
Well, honestly, that's one of the big problems online because there's that disconnect. I grew up, my dad owned retail stores. So I remember working in those retail stores and having to talk with people. And that's probably fundamentally where I learned some of my people skills. And nowadays, you really don't have to have it. I mean, you can outsource your customer support where you can just be a nerd behind a computer.
And you can still do that with retail. It's just put a little bit of heart into just look at the bigger picture of what it's going to take. And by the way, there's nothing cooler than seeing your product on store shelves. I mean, that's kind of like a unique, cool thing to see. So you should just do it anyways because it's cool.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
So as you're saying, a business owner should be putting capital back into the business and putting effort, putting marketing or whatever that be back into the business leads me to the next question, which is cash flow and managing that.
Yep.
But imagine that it's not like having your own Shopify store where you make a sell and then, a couple of days later, those funds are in your account. What does that cash flow scenario look like and what's typical?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So the way it works with retail chains, and it's a little bit more stressful, I agree, but the return on investment can be substantial. So the way it works with retail chains is that a buyer looks at your product, They say, interesting. Okay, we'll test it out. They'll put it in 20, 50, or 100 of their stores, typically, like a smaller version of their stores. They're built for testing. And those test orders will be 500 units, 1,000 units, a couple of thousand units, maybe 10,000 units if they really believe that your product's magical. I had one Amazon seller who miraculously got a 50,000 unit order interest from a chain store, like because they knew it was going to convert. It was during the holiday season. That's really, really rare. She actually turned it down because she understood that you don't have to say yes to these orders because you don't want to struggle later on. So typically they'll be small. So most of you guys can handle that as Amazon sellers. You probably have some units in stock or whatever. You can handle the 1,000 units. You know what I mean? It's not going to kill you. And then what happens is you get the purchase order, read the purchase order, make sure that it makes sense, that they're not going to like charge you on all sorts of weird things. Because sometimes retailers throw some weird stuff in. Most of them are cool. Some of them are kind of weird, you know, percentage off here, percentage off there. Just make sure you're making money. Like, you know, you're in the business of making money. Like sometimes people will do deals with retailers just because it sounds cool. And then they wonder later why they didn't make money. It's just because look at the contracts and be a smart business owner. And then what happens is you ship the goods to a certain location, typically like a distribution center or a place somewhere in the United States. They'll give you the address or whatever. Rarely do they have you ship it to individual stores. They do sometimes, but most of the time it's like, you know, a few locations throughout, you know, the United States. And then from there, they ship it out to stores. Once they receive the goods, then you get paid. So typically 30, 60, 90 days afterwards. That scares people, right? I understand that. However, there are solutions for that. So first of all, the initial test orders are not going to be large. So, you know, most of you can handle kind of waiting a little bit for that. You can actually tell a buyer, I have some units in stock, and they would even take 500 units if you had it. You know what I mean? So it doesn't, again, you can kind of control the initial order. If you're freaking out, you don't know how you're going to pay for it, the buyer says, okay, I'll give you, you know, 5,000 unit order, you would say, and that bothers you, you can say, you know what, buyer, is it okay if we start with 1,000 unit test instead of 5,000 units? Because I just want to make sure that this is great. I'm going to test all this marketing stuff and all these, whatever, make up something. And you know what? The buyer would be cool with that because they would rather you do what's something that's more comfortable for you than not. Because usually you'll get yourself in trouble if you're exaggerating, saying you can handle it and so forth. So what happens with so for a while, like most of you guys could probably handle it considering you're already selling on Amazon, but there's something called retail factoring if you really don't have the cash flow. Retail factoring is basically, there are third-party companies who will finance the entire order from a chain store. So they will pay for the manufacturing, the shipping, you know, all that stuff. And then when you get paid from the retailer, they take like probably 2 to 3 points off the whatever. So basically there are companies out there who will be happy to pay for all of it and then get the money back from the retailer when you get paid. It's called retail factoring. You can do a Google search on it. There's different versions of it. There's ones that focus on purchase orders. And there's different kind of variables. But the essence of it is you reach out to these companies in advance before you start reaching out to retail chains. You say, hey, I'd like to set up an account with you. And usually you don't even need that good of credit or anything because if it's for retail, the way it works is they're looking at the credit of the retailer. So they pretty much know that if it's Bed Bath & Beyond or whatever, they're going to get paid. If it's Walmart, they're going to get paid. So they're happy to do this because it's almost a guarantee they're going to make some money off this. You know what I mean? And so there's lots of companies who focus just on retail. So the way it works is you set it up in advance, you fill out some paperwork, you're in their system. If Bed Bath & Beyond decides to get a purchase from you, they'll give you the purchase order. You hand it over to the retail factoring company. That company will pay for everything. And then when you get the order, again, they get 2 to 3 points. And mostly they're focused on the retailers, their credit and so forth. So you don't even need like great credit or anything like that. So unless you're just horrible and you ruined everybody, like if it's really, really bad, they're going to kind of question you. But generally speaking, there's companies out there who are happy to take the this and help you. Does that make sense? So most companies, if they reach out to retailers, the buyer's going to be like, so how are you going to be able to pay for this? If you tell them retail factoring, it's like a no-brainer. Most people don't have the money just sitting cash flow in the bank to be able to pay for huge orders. So you just want to make sure that you set that up in advance. Make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense. And I guess for them, they're putting in the investment of allocating shelf space. And so they want to make sure that this is going to be a long-term return on their investment.
You just want to make sure that if they give you an order, you can fulfill it.
Sure.
So they're going to want to know, like, how are you paying for this? Okay, well, do you have retail factory? These things. This is all set up in the industry as already. This is a very common practice. So it wouldn't like shock or surprise people. Other people don't want to do that. They like I have some clients who, their concept of going to a big chain store, like that would freak them out. So they wanted to start small. So like I teach them how to sell the smaller stuff first. They make some money, they have some money in the bank, then they grow slowly, and then they pay for it themselves. Everybody has a different personality. So if you don't want to finance anything, you don't want to get into any of that, it freaks you out, but you still want to sell to retailers, there's other ways to do it, and you can slowly build up your business that way as well. So there's lots of strategies related to retail.
Okay. So in our pre-interview conversation, I know that in the past you've had relationships, and at your live events, they're actually pretty unique because you've had people from like Walgreens or CVS or different stores. This year you're having Whole Foods. Is that right?
Yeah. So I do these live events, and I set them up in kind of a weird way. It's I personally love them. So they're one-day events, and I partner up with the retail chain at every one. And the reason I do that is because it's fun for people, and it just helps people along, So the way it works is if your product makes sense for that retailer, we'll have your product reviewed by that retailer. So the retailer understands that you're trying to make money, and I'll only bring them pre-vetted products, right? So I'll help you create your pitch. I'll help you create your strategy and so forth, and then we'll present that product to that retail chain. So, but even if they don't like that particular retailer that I have partnered with, I actually help them create a pitch, help them the strategy, and then I give them a list of buyers' contacts so that even if they don't like that retailer, the day after the event, they can actually go after 5,000 buyers at the top 100 retailers with their product. They know how to pitch them and everything because I help them through. So basically, these one-day events are, I coach you a little bit, I teach you all the strategies, I help you come up with your story, and then either I help you with that partner or I give you the tools to go after retailers immediately after the event. So this particular one is with Whole Foods. And so I have a lot of customers there who want to sell to them, and then others who just want to learn about retail. Make sense?
That totally makes sense. Now, when you're doing that, do you find that a lot of people that are getting into this retail, are they intimidated or are they overly optimistic? What's like the most common thing that you see?
Oh, all over the place. But generally speaking, if they're coming to me and they're working with me, they're kind of excited, because they're like, you wouldn't spend the time with me to learn about this stuff if there wasn't some sort of excitable thing. There's some of you guys just like the concept of retail just sounds cool to you. If that's you, please come. You will enjoy whatever it is that I teach. It's really a fun thing. It's a strategy on how do I make money with retail chains? How do you speak to buyers? What do you say to them to get them to buy? What are the things that it's going to convert into sales? I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I want to learn about. So that's what I teach. So I attract that kind of audience. Show me how to make money and just get me from A to Z. And that's kind of what I do. So I usually attract that audience, and they're usually pretty excited about figuring out how to make money.
That's cool. And It sounds like it's something that you enjoy, and obviously people enjoy because you have all these case studies and these examples of people selling their products.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing this for a long time, and, I still love it. It still gets me excited every time I hear about someone. Like I went to an internet marketing conference just to hang out with other internet marketing people. And then I run into like a ton of clients, and I do video testimonials on the spot because they told me they got into retail chains. Like it happens all the time. So for me, it's like, if I could just help you grow, succeed, play, and whatever it is that you're doing, add some distribution strategy, add some extra income, add some extra play to your life, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to, I don't plan on stopping this. I really, really like it.
That's cool. I do have another question. One thing I want to tell our listeners, you and I have known each other for years. I am not an affiliate of your program, but I very much a supporter. And that's why I had Karen on the podcast.
I know. You're so nice to me. And I love you. I'm so happy that we know each other. I still don't know how we know each other, but we just got along,
Well, yeah. I mean, like it's years and years. It's kind of like figuring out like, what was that moment? But, for, business owners, I'm very much focused on growth. And I have a short list of people that I really respect, that are genuine, that have a lot of integrity. And you're on that short list. And for the retail side, you're definitely that person.
Oh,
So there's my honest plug to you. And again, no incentive whatsoever. That is just me genuinely wanting to have more people be more successful, and then have you be able to share this with others.
I feel the same way about you, Spencer.
Awesome.
Thank you very much.
So I do have a final question.
Yeah.
Which is, what should I have asked you that we didn't talk about?
If you're going to go after retail chains, try not to be, like sometimes people go after stores and they go kind of the hustle route and they're like piecing together online little bits and pieces of things. I will tell you that a chain store order can change your life. It can 100x your business very, very quickly. And it's like internet. When I first got started and I started to figure out how to sell information online, it was like a nightmare. It's like a whole new flavor. And, I did a lot of free stuff for a long time and it took me years to figure it out. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying a plug to what I do, but actually, I just condense everything down into like a really systematic, formulaic approach. So try not to go and test little things out and reach out to this buyer this way and that buyer that way and not knowing what you're doing. Be strategic about it. Own it. If you're going to do retail, learn about your craft, what you're about to do, so that you can just go, if it's not me, find someone to kind of mentor you a little bit, because it's a huge return on investment. You know what I mean? Like the return can change everything for you. So I highly request that you take it seriously if you're going to do it, and spend the time, learn from somebody. That's really important. And also, one thing that I've noticed about people is if you're like terrified about it, like it scares the crap out of you to even consider going after retail chains, don't go after retail chains. Go after smaller stores first. Follow who you are as a person. I've never met anyone who walked in a retail chain scared the whole time, stressed out the whole time, that you know what I mean, that enjoyed the ride, that like made lots of money and so forth. Scared money doesn't really make you money. You know what I mean? Like I want you to like go in like excitable. Just know that there's other strategies to get into retail that doesn't require from you to going to the largest retailers in the world. If that's not your personality, own that. And it's okay. Just learn those other strategies. I have clients who have totally different personalities who will go from 0 to 100 and go to the largest stores tomorrow and would be happy to do it. And other ones who would have a heart attack the entire way. Don't do that. Just own who you are, and then go the gentle, playful, easy route and learn those strategies, and it's okay. Make sense?
That does make sense. For our listeners, I think today they can walk away from having a whole new opportunity mindset, another tool in the box. They can see if this is a fit for them. And for any of our Amazon sellers, I totally encourage you to take the route of doing this. I know you've got a couple websites. RetailMBA.com is your primary site. For the live event, it's RetailMBALive.com.
Mm-hmm.
And then
that's it. So RetailMBA.com, RetailMBALive.com. Those are like my two main sites. And, I have tons of videos on YouTube and all sorts of things. I give a lot of free content away. You can sign up to, like a free training on my site and so forth. I do webinars often. And, so there's a lot of stuff. I've done this a long time, so I try and share stuff. So just learn more. I really want to help you. I hope you consider retail as a possibility. It's not, I have people who had not sold anything before getting into the world's largest retailers, lots and lots of times. So this is possible for anyone. And that's what I would say about that. Incredible.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time with us today, Karen. This was a fun conversation, and I hope that all of our listeners can move forward with that. Check out our site and go make it happen. Do some retail, guys.
Woohoo!
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.